Rose and the Central Fairfax Chamber of Commerce for allowing me to do this lunch and learn virtually. This was scheduled a couple months ago, and I will be speaking about my new book that is coming out called More Than a Fine, The True Cost of Speeding in Virginia. Can everybody see the cover?
Yes.
All right. So you might think that speeding is only punished with a fine, but it is actually punished with so much more. The first thing is the fine. Now, everybody probably has gotten a speeding ticket at some point in their life. The fine is prepayable. You can pay it online, over the phone, at the courthouse, and you don't have to actually go to court to fight the ticket if that's what you choose to do. It is usually $6 for every mile per hour over the speed limit, but that can be increased in certain areas and times of the day. Like in a school crossing zone, it increases to $7 for every mile per hour over the limit. Highway work zones and residential areas is $8 for every mile per hour. But something that most people don't know is if you prepay your fine online, you also have to pay court costs, even if you don't go to court. And they're based on the severity of the offense, but generally traffic offenses have the lowest court costs that there are in Virginia. If you choose to contest your ticket in court, the fine can be as high as $250. And there are some exceptions, like speeding in a residential area, there can be an additional higher fine, but it's generally up to $250. As I said, court costs have to be paid. They cannot be waived. A fine can be suspended or partially suspended, or they cannot impose a fine at all if you go to court. But you have to pay court costs if you pay it online or if you're convicted of anything in court. And as I said, they're based on the charge and also based on the case results. If your case gets dismissed, like for example, if they offer you to do driving school and dismiss your case, you are still going to have to pay court costs for that. So the only time court costs don't have to be paid is if the case is completely dismissed without you having to do anything. So if you get any traffic ticket or criminal charge, you most likely are going to have to pay court costs. DMV points. A lot of people don't think about this, and this is where they get into trouble. DMV demerit points are based on the speed that you were caught driving. If you are charged with speeding and you just prepay your fine, you are convicted. It's just in law considered an admission of guilt, and you will get these points automatically on your record. So if you're going 1 to 9 miles per hour over the limit, that's 3 points on your record. If you're going 10 to 19 miles per hour over the limit, that's 4 points. And 20 miles per hour or more over the limit, which can be charged as speeding or reckless driving, that's 6 points. And I should have said in the beginning, what I'm doing with this presentation is I'm just giving highlights about the major parts of my book. So your driving record. If you get a conviction for a speeding ticket, it's going to be on your record for several years. If it's just speeding, it's going to be on your record for 5 years, but don't assume that it's just going to automatically disappear because, of course, things take longer than they should. Reckless driving, that's a crime, and that charge is actually going to be on your driving record for 11 years, but on your criminal record permanently, which I'll get to a little bit later. So the reason why it's bad to have these things on your record, there are a number of reasons. One, it could hurt you in the future. So if you're ever pulled over again for anything, the police will run your record and you're less likely to get a break, the worse your driving record is. So on the road, whereas normally if somebody has a clean driving record, maybe they won't get a ticket or they'll get a lower ticket. It's not likely to happen if you have a bad record. If you go to court in the future ever to fight any other ticket or crime, when I say crime, I'm talking about traffic offenses that can become criminals, reckless driving, DUIs, that type of thing. The prosecutor is going to be less likely to cut you a break the worse your record is. And if you're going in front of a judge and you're convicted, you're less likely to get a break, meaning the judges could impose a higher fine than they normally would have. And the judge also can impose a higher fine than that prepayable amount. So for example, if you were going 10 miles per hour over the limit and that's, a $60 fine, a judge can fine you anywhere up to $250. And then also the points, like I said, are going to be on your record. The points drop off after 2 years, but the actual conviction is going to be on your record for several years. Suspended license is another thing. These slides just kind of keep getting worse and worse with the penalties. If you get too many points on your record, the DMV will suspend your driver's license. If you get 18 points in 12 months, you'll get suspended, or 24 points in 24 months. You might think there's no way that's ever going to happen, but it happens a lot. And like I said, you start getting one, and then if you're ever pulled over again, you're not going to get that break, like I said, and then it just adds up. And it seems like once you get pulled over once, it just seems like the police keep pulling you over. And I don't know why that is, but it happens. So what's the bad thing about having a suspended license? You can't drive. You cannot drive unless you get a restricted license. A restricted license will allow you to drive very limited places and specific times. In the application, you have to tell the judge where you're going to go, your work address, if you pick up children from school, if you have to take minors or adults that live in your home to a doctor. There's very specific places that you can go, and they will let you go to certain places, but you have to stick to what is allowed in the restricted license. You can't go anywhere you want. You can't go to the grocery store. You can't stop for fast food on your way home from work. You can't do it. And I did actually have a client that was pulled over and charged because he went to a fast food place and he wasn't allowed to. You might think it's not a big deal, but it's still a violation of that restricted license and you can get charged. And it's a crime. So if you're charged with driving on a suspended license, it can be punished with up to 12 months in jail, a fine up to $2,500, and mandatory driver's license suspension. That's probably usually the worst penalty. If you're suspended and you drive on a suspended license, you are going to get suspended again, and you cannot get a restricted license if you are suspended for that reason. And it's just going to keep tacking on, because if you continue to drive and you continue to rack up these charges, your license suspension period is just going to continue, and you'll find yourself never able to get out of that hole, basically. If you drive in violation of your restricted license, believe it or not, that's actually worse than just driving without a license at all. In addition to it being a crime punished with jail and a fine, it is punished with a mandatory 12-month license suspension, and you cannot get a restricted license at all. The other charge is punished with suspension up to 90 days, pretty much, but this one up to 12 months. So car insurance. If you get a speeding ticket or really any traffic infraction at all, your car insurance is going to go up. The amount that it goes up depends on a lot of things. There is no bright line rule, if you get convicted of speeding, or it's going to be this much increase, or a DUI, that much increase. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on the severity of the offense, your history with the company, your driving record, your age, where you're driving, your credit history, all those. There are so many things that a car insurance company takes into consideration. And car insurance companies can and do look at your record periodically, not just when you're up for renewal, but you can safely bet that when it's time for renewal, they will see anything that is on your record. So even if they don't find out about it right away, they will eventually find out about it. Life insurance. This is another one that most people are surprised about. If you apply for life insurance, they will ask about recent convictions for motor vehicle offenses, DUIs, felonies. The companies are all different. Sometimes they want to know within the last 3 years, sometimes last 5 or 7 years. It just depends on the company and exactly what they're trying to get into. And the reason is they look at people with motor vehicle offenses and criminal charges as higher risk to insure. So this can affect the premium price that they offer you, the amount of coverage you get, or your ability to get coverage at all. Most likely traffic offenses aren't going to make you uninsurable for life insurance purposes, but they can affect your premium cost and the coverage that you're going to get. So that's just something to be aware of that not a lot of people think about. So it actually could impact a future lawsuit as well, a speeding ticket conviction. If you plead guilty or no contest, that plea can be held against you in a civil lawsuit. So if you were involved in a car accident and someone is suing you, really they're suing the insurance companies, but if you're involved in an accident and you plead guilty or no contest to the traffic infraction that was based on that accident, that other person can use that plea against you in court. Also, if you prepay the fine, usually fines for cases that involve traffic accidents can't be prepaid. But if you are able to prepay it and you do, that's an admission of guilt. And that admission, just prepaying that fine, can be used against you as well if there ever is a future lawsuit. Even if you are the person suing, the other side can use that against you if you are the plaintiff. If you think that somebody else was at fault for that accident and you sue them, they can bring in that plea of guilty against you. Out-of-state drivers. Virginia traffic tickets, speeding convictions also affect out-of-state drivers. So all the penalties that I talked about for the Virginia DMV, if you're an out-of-state driver, you will get points on your Virginia record, and that conviction will go on your Virginia record, but it's going to impact you the same way if you don't have a Virginia license. So you're going to get the points, it's going to go on your record, and you could be suspended or revoked in Virginia, just like you could if you were a Virginia resident. And the reason why this is a problem is because Virginia participates in something called the Interstate Compact, and that is an agreement between states to communicate about traffic offenses that occur in the different states. So if somebody with an out-of-state license is cruising through Virginia and gets a traffic ticket and thinks that nothing's going to happen to them, or lives in Maryland or DC and thinks that nothing's going to happen to them, it will, because that home state will find out about it. And the home state, that's what they call it, the home state is going to penalize that driver just as if that offense had occurred in that state. So for example, in Virginia, if you're speeding 10 to 19 miles per hour over the limit, that's 4 points on your record. I'm just making up things here. If let's say your license is in a state where that offense is punished with 6 points on your record. That state will give you the 6 points, even though Virginia didn't, because that's what that state would have done. And also, if you have a Virginia license, and same thing, if you get a ticket in another state, whatever occurs to you in that state, Virginia is going to take the action as if it had occurred here. So if you are driving more than 20 miles per hour in another state, that's probably not reckless driving, because Virginia is pretty harsh with that penalty. If you are charged with speeding 20 miles per hour over the limit and have a Virginia license in another state, that just might be a speeding ticket conviction, but Virginia might treat that differently because they're going to treat it the way that Virginia would treat that action. So that's something to be aware of. Juvenile drivers. I think a lot of people on the call would be interested in hearing this, and probably the children should be watching this. Juvenile drivers are impacted much more quickly and in some ways more severely than adult drivers for speeding tickets and traffic tickets. The first thing is a parent must be involved. If somebody under the age of 18 is charged with a traffic offense or speeding, they cannot hide that. If they prepay the ticket, they have to have a notarized signature of at least one parent and then send that in the mail or pay that however they were going to prepay it. It can't be done online because they need that notarized signature. If the juvenile is going to court to fight the ticket, a parent needs to go with them. And also, if a juvenile is charged with a crime, any type of crime, no matter how big or small, a parent has to go. A parent will be subpoenaed, and if that parent does not go to court, they could be held in contempt of court and charged with a criminal offense and possibly arrested. So, moral of the story is juvenile drivers cannot hide things from their parents. Another thing, juvenile drivers are going to have to take a driver improvement class if they have just one conviction for an offense resulting in points or a seatbelt or a child restraint violation. Failure to take the class in 90 days will result in license suspension, and their license will be suspended until the class is completed. And they're also going to have to pay a reinstatement fee to get their license back. If they are convicted of 2 offenses resulting in points, no matter in what time period before they're 18, or if the offense occurred before they're 18, their license will be suspended for those 2 convictions. And it's going to be suspended for 90 days, and they are going to have to pay a reinstatement fee. So I mentioned criminal record earlier. Most of you probably know that if you don't, reckless driving in Virginia is a crime. If you are driving 20 miles per hour or more over the speed limit, or 80 miles per hour or more, regardless of the speed limit, it can be charged as reckless driving. So it's punished with jail, and that's up to 12 months. It's punished with a possible fine of up to $2,500 and license suspension up to 6 months. And I keep saying up to because this is in the discretion of the judge and the court. Those are the possible maximum penalties. The DMV is also going to assign 6 points to your driving record. And when the DMV assigns points, there's nothing the court can do about it. If you were convicted of an offense, you get the points that the DMV says you get. And that conviction is on your driving record for 11 years, but it's on your criminal record permanently. You cannot expunge it. Virginia does not allow expungements of any criminal convictions, no matter how minor you might think might be, no matter how long ago it was. If you are 50 years old and got a reckless driving conviction when you were 18, there's nothing you can do about it. It's on there. Another possible penalty is loss of a job. No, you're not going to lose your job because you were charged with speeding or paid a speeding ticket. What could make you lose a job is missing work to go to court. A lot of the times court cases are continued. What could also possibly make you lose a job are points if you have to drive for work and need a clean driving record. And like I said, just the conviction in general and it being on your record. Sometimes if people are suspended, have a suspended license because of points, regardless of having a restricted driver's license, they might not be able to drive for work because employers' insurance could go up and most likely will go up. And the employers obviously don't want to have to pay more insurance because of things the employees did. And this actually can occur whether the employee was driving a work vehicle or a non-work vehicle and got points. It's having it on their record at all that's the problem. If you have a commercial driver's license, you actually, again, get impacted much more quickly. You can get disqualified from driving, which basically means you can't drive a commercial motor vehicle, so you can't work. If you get serious traffic, if you're convicted of serious traffic violations, and they are specific offenses, but it's not just speeding and not just reckless driving. For example, if you are speeding more than 15 miles per hour over the limit, that is considered a serious traffic offense, and that'll go against you in terms of adding up to get disqualified. So just speeding 10 to 19 miles per hour over the limit is what the DMV assigns points for. So in this particular situation, it would be very important about exactly the number of points that you're convicted of that are written on that ticket, because if it's more than 15 and you're a CDL holder, that's going to be a problem. Speeding tickets also can affect a security clearance, believe it or not. There are a number of different categories that investigators look at when they're granting a security clearance or deciding to renew a security clearance. But the two that are most relevant to speeding and traffic are personal conduct and criminal offenses. So personal conduct basically covers a lot of things that don't fit into any of the other categories neatly. What they consider to be a pattern of rule behavior would be a personal conduct issue, and a number of traffic tickets could affect that and having a bad driving record. Additionally, when you are applying for a security clearance, it's a very long application, and at one point they do ask about your driving record, and they also ask about the amount of fines. So sometimes even if the traffic ticket itself won't cause a problem, the amount of fine that you have to pay could cause a problem. So that's something that people need to be aware of. And criminal offenses, even if you're not convicted and even if you're not charged, can affect you. So if you were, for example, involved in something that, could have been a DUI, but wasn't, and maybe you got a traffic ticket, I'm just totally making that up. The security clearance investigators can delve into anything, any publicly available information, even if there was what they consider to be poor behavior that didn't result in a criminal charge. So say the police are called, but for whatever, you get in a fight with somebody, or somebody claims you got in a fight, the police come, nobody gets charged, they can find out about that, and that can be used against you. So it's just important to keep in mind. And that's my book cover again. So that was just a brief overview of everything that is covered in my book. There is a lot more in there, but I just wanted to try to make it concise and hit the main points. So I guess now we can open it up to any questions you guys have.
I don't have any questions in the group chat right now, Jean, but I have one. I know that since the speed limits, like along portions of 66 and interstates 95 and 81 and 85 have some spots where the speed limit is 75, there's been talk in the Virginia legislature of changing that reckless driving rule from 80 and over automatic reckless driving to something different for those drivers who, they're passing a semi on 81 and they creep up to 82 miles an hour, which is only 7 miles over the speed limit. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know about that. The only thing I know is that, first of all, laws changed July 1st. So anything that you hear about a law changing, even if it is passed now, the law now is going to be the law until July 1st. So if you are charged with something, you will be held accountable for what the law was at the time. So I would say keep an eye on that. And first of all, that sometimes these things pass and sometimes they don't. And even if it does, but you get a ticket before July, charged, not a ticket, a charge with reckless driving before July 1st, you are still held to those penalties at the time. But whether they should change the law, a lot of people do that. So.
Right. No, I don't think that it's changed, but I know that the last couple of legislative sessions, there's been talk to change that. And I've noticed, because I drive a little further out west than most of you on 66, they do post a lot of signs that remind people that, 80 and over is reckless driving. Not that anyone seems to be paying attention.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions? I found it to be very informative, Jean, and I cannot wait to share the juvenile stuff with young Alex.
Right.
Lisa has a question.
I do, and I was trying to type it. When you spoke about the interstate correspondence, are all states included with that? So is it, I guess that's my question, is every state a participant?
Not all states. I believe it's like 45 or 46 of them, though. Most states are.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would just like to say that I thought, Jean, you did a really wonderful job. It was very informative. It was good information.
Thank you.
Jean, what are the number of positive points that you can get?
So you can get up to 5 points. Every Virginia driver starts with 0. So if you have an out-of-state record, you have a 0 automatically. But every Virginia driver starts with 0 from the year you start driving, and you can get as many as 5 positive points. So if you're a +5, that's a perfect record. And you can also take a driver improvement class. If the court orders you to, you might not get your 5 points, but if you take one voluntarily, you can get 5 points back on your record. But you can only do that once every 2 years. Yeah. That's why people would keep racking up the tickets and doing the class.
Is that the same test? The insurance? I know I took a test for Geico on driving and got a little certificate. Is that the same one that the state?
It probably is, because you can use that class either to get 5 points or for a reduction in insurance. So it probably is, as long as it's a DMV approved class.
So Susan just typed in, thanks, Jean, very informative.
Thanks, Susan. Well, there is so much more. Actually, I mentioned in the book the number of 5 positive points. So there's a lot more in the book. I just wanted to hit the highlights and didn't want to bore anybody if I was going into something that everybody wasn't interested in. But basically everything that speeding can affect is dealt with in the book, including different speed limits. Different speed limits apply to different roads and different times of the day and different vehicles. Usually they're posted, but not always. So.
Jean, if someone wants to purchase your book, how do they do that?
Yeah.
They go to Amazon, and it is in the process of getting approved right now. It's not just you submit it and it's done. So hopefully in the next couple of days, but go to Amazon, type in More Than a Fine, the true cause. Well, you don't have to type in the whole thing. You can type in my name or More Than a Fine, because it's just my only book so far. And what I can also do is I can send Jennifer the link, or I can put it on social media or something so you guys can easily access it.
Yeah,
I have a friend that teaches drivers training especially for people from other countries. I'm going to mention this book to her because that would be a great information for people coming in, for other countries. But that's her business, so it would be a great tool for her to use.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yep. Her business is in Arlington.
Sorry, hon. I just want to say, have you reached out to DMV at all to see if there's any way that, for resources or something that you could link yourself to DMV in any possible way? I'm just, trying to think. I want to get your book out there.
Mhm.
That's a really good idea. I haven't yet. I just figured nobody there would talk to me because it's just one time I tried to call them about an issue with my license. I was on hold for 2 hours. So I haven't yet, but I should do that. It's worth a shot.
Mhm.
I just have a low-level person within DMV, and I'll reach out to her and just say, hey, someone wrote a specific book about speeding and the effects.
Mhm.
How can she work that through? Well, you know me, I'll try to do whatever I can for you.
Oh, thank you.
Well, that being said, we had a few more people that jumped on the call after you started, Jean, and I want to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves and tell us who they are and what they do. So, Monica, we can start with you.
So I work out in Prince William. I'm a Fairfax County kid. I went to Oakton High School, so I'm a local person, but I work out in Prince William, live in Leesburg. I work for an event venue called Uptown Alley, and it's a 60,000 square feet. So you think of Dave & Buster's, which is closed, by the way, right there at the mall at Fairfax, Fair Oaks. We are bowling, laser tag, a pure event venue out in Prince William County on the eastern side, western side, sorry, right smack dab in the middle of Manassas, right on 234. So that's and Jean's my connection in my team. So,
yeah, Dave & Buster's is a chamber member, and I hate that they're suffering right now through this, but I'm familiar with where you are. I'm a Fauquier County resident, so
okay.
I've seen your venue. It's not too far from the indoor go-kart place.
Is your facility open?
Pardon?
Is your facility open?
So no, we're physically not open because the governor won't allow us to be open. But what we are is we've modified, like every other restaurant, we have beautiful food. And so we've modified carry out and delivery partners with Uber Eats and DoorDash. And we actually have contactless curbside pickup. We are a corporation, so we have 3 of us in the United States and 1 overseas. So we're not a little tiny company. So we're able to weather the storm a little bit better. We did have to lay off 60 employees in my location in Manassas, but those of us that are salaried managers are still staying on. So we're trying. We're there every single day. Not me, because I'm working from home, but the other 5 are there every single day. And we're open and we sell food. You wouldn't think about it, but where we're located right in central Manassas, right on 234, we get a lot of phone calls. A lot.
Good.
Because right around the corner is Micron. So they're still there. The IT people are all there. And yeah.
Monica, tell everybody about the specials you have going on, like the party box for birthdays.
Thank you so much, Jean. That was a very good plant. We have all kinds of specials going on right now. Every single week on a Sunday, we do a takeout kit. And this week, what we have, and it's like really cheap with me showing this, it's skewers. I think it's backwards. Sorry. I guess I can't really turn it around, but it's summer skewers. And yeah, it's not because I can't flip it around. But it's $24.95. It serves up to 4 people. So we're trying to make this very economical for people. We also have a birthday. I'll flip that one. Another one, a birthday in a box. And somebody asked me if we can do an anniversary in a box. I go, absolutely. I can write on a cookie cake, happy anniversary. But every single week we do specials. Today happens to be Wine Down Wednesday. So it's a bottle of wine or 6 beer, an appetizer. What else did I say it was? There was 3 things out there. And you can choose whether you want a 6-pack of domestic or imported beer or a bottle of wine. So it's just, we offer that for $15. We do a lot of stuff for the first responders all day long. For half-price appetizers. So we're out there just trying to survive like everybody else. And as I'm the sales and marketing director, I do what I can to try to get our word out there that we are existing.
Wonderful. We had a couple of other folks on the call that have dropped off, but I wanted to, I know Cynthia Cotto, that's okay. Cynthia Cotto from Sona Bank listening in and watching, but I don't know if she has audio. She didn't have audio last time, but Sona Bank's an amazing community bank local to the region. And Cynthia and her crew in the Fairfax branch are fantastic. So Cynthia, I hope I've given you an adequate commercial today. And then we also had on the call Amy Stevenson, who's with HHH Properties. They manage the Fair City Mall. And I'm sure that they're struggling with trying to be diplomatic with rent collections and things like that right now. But it's a great organization and a great supporter of the city. So I was glad to see that Amy was on the call. If you want to exchange your contact information, feel free to use the Zoom chat, ladies and gentlemen. You can save that chat. And if you have trouble saving it, I can send you the chat as well.
Oh, I think Cynthia heard you. She said thank you in the chat.
I see her, yes. Excellent, Cynthia. One of my favorite people. Give you a heads up on some things that are coming next week. Bear with me. I'm going to try to share my screen and our events calendar.